Gauteng. Remember Gauteng last time we told them that they should come back with the department because they did not follow written instructions on what the meeting was expecting from them. So that's why they're here again today. Yeah, thank you. Can you flight the agenda, Noltando? Hey, there's a challenge with the gadget. Just flight the agenda. All members, that's the agenda for the meeting. The additions on the agenda. If there is none, is there anyone who want to move for adoption of this agenda?
Honorable Chair, it's Nkosi. I move for the adoption of the agenda. Thank you.
Honorable Nkosi moves. Any seconder?
Zube seconding, Chairperson, the adoption of the agenda.
Thanks, Honorable Zube. Let's check apologies.
Good morning once again, Chair. Good morning, honorable members and everyone present in the meeting. Yes, Chair, there are apologies. I've got an apology from the Minister, an apology from the Deputy Minister, and an apology from the DG. They are all abroad on official business. I also have apologies, Chair, from the MEC of the Gauteng Department of Education, MEC Chilwane, and the HOD, Mr. Mosue. They are both attending the EXCO meeting convened by the Premier. But Mr. Albert Chanier has been elected to lead the delegation from the Gauteng Department of Education, Chair. Oh, sorry, Dr. Whittle will be representing the DG on today's meeting, Chair. Thank you. Oh, my apologies, Chair. I also have an apology from Honorable Lutuli. She's currently in a flight to Cape Town. She will be joining us later. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Noltando. Honorable members, that's the apologies from the Minister, the DG, and the Deputy. We know the one is in London, in London. The other one, I think, is the DM is in Namibia. And the DG said you'll join us for some few minutes, but I'll persuade the members that we should give whoever is leading the delegation to give us a briefing, on the APP and the budget. The reason I'm suggesting that we should give them a hearing, even though the minister and the deputy are not here, is because they never disappoint us. Whenever we have meetings, we know that the minister will be here and on time. The DG will be here also on time, and the DM. And yeah, they are always available when we call them. So when they say they are not available, we believe that they are not available. It's not just that they just don't want to be with us. And I'll persuade members to accept. So we accept that apology, that we accept the apology and move forward with the presentation. Is that in order, honorable members? That's my suggestion as I'm opening the meeting.
We agree, Chair. We agree, Chair.
Yeah, if there's no objection, then we'll move on. The Gauteng, Gauteng, we've had our challenges with them. Also, they are here. The MEC is not in, and the DG, but they've got somebody who will lead the delegation. So, yeah, I guess we should also let them make their presentations that we are done with this part of our work. Yeah, and that which means as we engage honorable members, some of the questions that needs the political head cannot be asked, or even if they are asked, we may not get the answers to those questions. So this meeting will probably be very short, and we can still engage with the minister and the DM and the DG some other time. May I take this opportunity to give to the Ntate Mahada, who is leading the delegation here department?
Good morning, Chairperson. My name is Granville Whittle. I am acting DG. I'm standing in for DG Mwele this morning. So if that's fine, Honorable Chair, then I can hand over to my colleagues.
It is very fine. You're welcome.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chair.
Yeah.
Can I then invite Mrs. Mbonambi, that'll do the first part of the presentation for the DBE, and then hand over to the CFO, Mr. Kuno, who's in the meeting with us. Mrs. Mbonambi.
Good morning, Honorable Chair and honorable members. Will try to show my face, but maybe due to network issues, I will have to close the video. Okay, let me try.
Yeah, you're welcome. Sure.
Maybe I need to show my face first so that you know.
Yeah, and when we're giving you about 40 minutes to make the presentation, the department's presentation, 40, we may extend it by another 10 minutes, which will make it 50, depending. So you have to time yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Good morning once more to honorable members, to the acting DG and the DBE senior management. As indicated, I will be presenting the 2023-24 annual performance plan of the Department of Basic Education, which is also coupled with the strategic plan 2021 to 2024. This is the presentation outline. I will not go line by line, but we'll be looking at the size and shape of the education sector, the government priorities, which are forming the basis for the development of the annual performance plan, touch on the sector priorities, state of the nation address as pronounced by the president, and then the annual plans towards the long-term outcomes, as well as the recommendations. This slide is pretty much covered. I'll be presenting on the performance part, and then the CFO will be presenting on the budget allocation. In terms of the size and shape of the education sector, basic education sector, I will just talk to the totals. In terms of the public schools, there's 12.7 million learners, educators, 405,050, schools, 22,740, and then the independent learners, independent schools, learners are 703,092, and educators 42,073, and the schools 2,145. And then the totals are learners 13.4 million, educators 447,123, and schools 24,894. This is the background which outlines all the plans that are taken into consideration in the development of the annual performance plan that includes the National Development Plan 2030, Medium-Term Strategic Framework 2019 to 2024, as well as the Action Plan 2024, which is a sector plan. So this, I'm going to the last bullet, Annual Performance Plan 2023-24 represents the fourth year of the activities towards achieving the objectives as outlined in the strategic plan 2020-21 to 2024-25. This busy diagram in terms of the strategic direction, it reflects on how the sector plan relates to the Sustainable Development Goals, that is the SDGs, as well as other plans and reports. Basically it shows that the departmental plans are not developed in isolation. They take the cue from the National Development Plan and as well as the medium-term strategic framework. I don't think I'll go also into much in detail on this diagram, but the plans are then there's national as well as the provincial education departmental plans, which were presented in the previous weeks before the select committee. Then there are also independent analyses as well as the periodic reports. I just to reflect on how these come into play. In terms of the approach to the strat plan and the annual performance plans, there are broad outcomes which consolidate the work contributed by the sector.
Me, Mrs. Mbanambi, the slides are not moving on my side. I'm not sure about other members. Honorable Chair, I'm not sure if you can, if your slides are moving. Or if it's just a problem on our side.
Yes, good morning. Njadu is also not moving on my side.
Oh no.
Okay, so maybe unshare and share again, Nozipo.
Sorry about that. Let me try and say again. Is the document showing?
Yeah, the document is showing.
I hope it will move this time. Apologies about that, Chair. It might be network related. We're still, yes, on the approach in terms of the broader outcomes which consolidate the work of the sector. And we also use the theory of change in terms of how the department influences the outcomes through its functions. I think now, I want to move on my side. Can I check if we are all on slide 8?
Let me check if it's this 8 or what.
No, we are on 7. Sorry, we are on 7.
7.
Yeah, it's not 8.
Oof. I don't know how I can be assisted on this one because it looks like maybe it's my network and
can I maybe share the presentation on my side and give you what is it called, the rights to control the presentation?
yes, yes, please. Let me unshare.
And this eating into your time.
Yeah, unfortunately, I will try to cover everything, but make sure that also I keep to the time. Let me. Yeah. And it's not, it's been showing, okay. Just appeared on my side. Can I ask you to, oh, okay, thank you. Put it on the, and I'm trying to control it on my side. I don't know if it's failing me, but let me try again.
Look, we've got copies of your presentation.
Okay.
At least for save time.
I can talk to them.
Oh, please, because we don't have the whole day, you know, we're running out of time. We have other engagements after this meeting.
I do
So,
agree.
but next time, I think when we have presentations, you need to check if these things are in order before coming to make your presentation. I don't know how we do that. We never had this problem before.
Yes, Chair, I do agree. I never had. That's why I was saying maybe it's network related because I'm also working from office, but.
Hello, Chairperson.
Yes, Ajahn.
Chairperson, I support you that we use the documents that we have.
Yeah, let's use the documents that we have as you present, and somebody will be struggling to do that for you. No, Tando, can you help with the slides?
To move the slides.
Yeah.
I was on slide 8 on the key government priorities.
Yeah, they are moving now.
Okay, thank you so much. There are 7 government priorities, and that as the basic education, the critical ones are 2, 3, 4, and 6, but the department does contribute to other departments. So just to reflect on all these government departments because they form basis of the development of the annual performance plan. And the next 2 slides are on the action plan. Also, I will not dwell much on those. It's just to indicate in terms of the action plan goals because they are also key in the annual performance plan. There's goals 1 to 13, that's important, improving learning outcomes, and goals 14 to 27. Then we can move to the medium-term strategic framework, of which there are 5 MTSF outcomes for the basic education sector. I don't know if I'm moving too fast now, but let me talk to the slides while she's assisting me. There are 5 medium-term strategic framework outcomes that the sector is responding to: improved school readiness, 10-year-old learners enrolled in publicly funded schools, read for meaning; 3, youths better prepared for further studies and the world of work; 4, youths living schooling system more prepared to contribute towards a prosperous and equitable South Africa; and 5, school infrastructure. In the next 3 slides, we have reflected on linking the MTSF outcomes with the departmental outcomes and outputs. Also, I will not be going through one by one, but we're trying to show the link. On the first column, it's the medium-term strategic framework outcome, and then it's the departmental outcome. Then it's all the outputs that are linked to those outcomes. And the outputs also are reflected in the annual performance plan. That was slide 13, I think, to 15. And yes, I've covered the 3 slides at once. And the slide 16 is reflecting on the sector priorities as approved by the Council of Education Ministers in 2019. So the department also contributes or works rather towards those sector priorities. And it's the 6 of them touching to improving foundational skills, as well as reading revolution, implementation of curriculum through the 3-stream model, 4th industrial revolution, entrepreneurship, dealing with quality and efficiency in the system through the standardized assessments. I'm touching only on the bold so that I don't go through one by one in terms of these priorities. And the 4th one is the implementation of 2 years of ECD before grade 1, and the migration of 0 to 4-year-olds. 5th one is the integrated infrastructure development plan, and the 6th one is talking to work in collaboration with other departments in terms of sports, arts and culture, health, and South African police services to promote social cohesion, as well as nation building, health, and school safety. Then we reflect on the SONA commitments as pronounced by the President. We reflect on 2023, but we also recap on the previous SONAs. But in terms of the 2023 one, we reflect on the early childhood development, the young children. We provide commitments as well as the progress. We reflect on the ECD subsidy to reach more children in need, and streamlined requirements for ECD centers, systems for planning developed, as well as the quality assurance system. That's the 2023 SONA, which also touches on producing skills that our country needs to expand vocational education and training systems. Then I will not go through the previous SONAs, but we reflect on those because we keep providing progress reports even on the previous SONAs. And the following slides are touching on the progress on selected key deliverables, also not one by one. Slide 22 is covering the infrastructure, which is the ACD from the inception until 24 April. I'll go through the totals on the last slide on the extreme right. In terms of the inappropriate structures, which is the actual schools that have been built and completed, up to 24 April, it's 330 schools, water supply, 1,292, sanitation, 1,085, electricity, 373, and fencing, it's the 4 schools. This was already presented when the results were released. It's just to capture on the national senior certificate performance from 2016 to 2022. And these are the percentages. The 2022 one is 80.1. Bachelor passes also 2016 to 2022, with latest one for 2022, 38.4. Special needs education learners passed NSC in 2022. Out of the 1,092 learners with special needs that wrote, 893 achieved, 439 for bachelors, 264 for diploma, 108 higher certificate, and 82 for endorsed. And the next slide is reflecting on the workbooks, the delivery of the workbooks, volume 1, grades 1 to 9. Apologies, someone is trying to assist me. And this slide is talking to the Funza Lushaka placements, those graduates who qualify and then they have to be placed in schools, and the breakdown is per province. The last column is showing the percentage per province. We can see from Eastern Cape, 56%, up to Western Cape, 79%. But the overall is 68% placements. That was for January to December 2022, because this is reported on the academic year. National School Nutrition Program in the next slide. It's also showing per province, and per quintile, the learners 1 to 3, and also 1 to 5 primary schools, as well as the secondary schools, but I will only talk to the totals. In terms of the learners, it's 9,689,000 learners that were provided with the meals in schools. Thank you. As we move to the next slide, we are starting to reflect on the actual APP development process. I'll try to summarize in terms of the findings from the oversight structures, both Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, as well as Auditor General South Africa. They said we must reflect more on the budget, the DPME, and also both structures indicated that we need to strengthen the information that is provided on the explanation of the planned performance, and also as well as the technical indicator descriptions. And also the department, as raised by AGSA, needs to focus less on the reports and provide the emphasis on what needs to be done. But I can confirm that all the findings were addressed with both oversight structures. And the next two slides are just focusing on the areas where this, as a sector, we need to focus, like better accountability. I'll try to summarize teacher development in terms of professional learning communities, and strengthened numeracy, reading, and ECD indicators. And also in terms of sector monitoring, strengthen the standardized output indicators, or the standardized indicators which are uniform or standard across the provincial education departments. I think I've tried also to summarize on that. In terms of the standardization, which I've touched in the previous slide, that's how the national provides oversight over the provincial education departments. There is a structure called the Heads of Education Department Committee, which is the HEDCOM subcommittee on planning, monitoring, and evaluation, which addresses the sector priorities in terms of improving teaching and learning. And this reflects maturity also in stabilizing the basic education sector. So this is where the issues pertaining to the sector, planning and reporting are discussed and resolved as well. We also invite in our HEDCOM subcom meetings, the Auditor General South Africa to be part of. And I think that covers the standardization, and that's how we monitor the sector priorities. And in the coming slides from 35, it's reflecting on the threat plan, which I will not go indicator by indicator because no updates or no revisions have been made in the strategic plan. It's still the same outcome indicators that the department is tracking. So I will also not go through those slides from about slide 35, I think 42, as they remain the same. So that I can just go straight into the targets, indicators and targets from slide 42 or 43 rather. Yes, thanks. Yeah, the annual performance plan is divided into 4 parts, and the programs on the department in the next slide are still 5 programs. I will also not reflect on them one by one in the interest of time. And the APP indicators in total on this slide is 69. It's the distribution and the targets starting in the column. 58 out of the 69 are annual targets, 9 are quarterly targets, 1 biannual, 1 biennial. The last 2 slides are showing the branch names and the distribution of indicators per branch. Slide 47 and 48 are reflecting on the major changes from what was initially projected in the previous APP, starting with 2.1.2 and 2.2.3 indicators for curriculum. Because of the huge differences from what was projected before, that's why we have that yellow, yes, amber, yellow, rose, which are showing the changes from what was initially projected. For ASIDI, which is infrastructure, the last 3 indicators, the understanding was that the ASIDI would come to an end by 2022-23. However, due to the pressures in terms of the big classes, the National Treasury has allocated the money in this regard. That's why we then see the targets. There were dashes before because there were no projections for these financial years. So in terms of the schools, it's 9 for this current financial year, 12 and 20 in the outer years. For sanitation, it's 350 for current year and 400 and 450 in the outer years. And for water, it's 1 for the current year, 30 and 40 in the outer years. And the next slide is talking to the changes on the program 5 indicators. The 2 indicators which are from program 5, also the targets were adjusted from what was originally projected in the previous APPs. Slide 49 is summarizing all the changes that were made in terms of the indicators, in terms of the wording, with only 1 indicator that was removed, which was in the previous APP. Program 1, I'll take all indicators at a time and then go through 2023-24 targets. For 1.1.1, it's 100%, then also 100% in the outer years. 1.1.2, it's 4 because it's the number of reports on misconduct cases. It's 4 for each of the MTEF targets, 1.1.3, it's 15 in the current financial year and 16 on the 2 outer years, 1.1.4, 24, all the throughout the MTEF, 1.2.1. It's the APP that is approved across the MTEF, 1.2.2 is 4 quarterly reports. Program 2, technical schools monitored on the implementation of CAPS, it's 18 across the MTEF. 2.1.2, learners obtaining subject passes through the second chance metric program. That was covered in the previous slide as the targets that have been amended. Current financial year, 80,000, outer years, 90,000 and 100,000. 213, learners with profound intellectual disability using the learning program. It's 4,127 in the current financial year, 4327 and 4477 in the outer years. Annual sector reports on the implementation of the policy on screening, identification, assessment, and support, the SIAS. It's a report that is an annual national report is produced on the SIAS across the MTEF. 215 to 218, and these are all reports. First one is on the new funding model for ECD. It's the reports throughout the MTEF. 2.1.6, report on the registration of the ECD. Also, it's the reports across the MTEF. 2.1.7, it's a report on the ECD Human Resource Development Plan, the HRD plan. It's a report for the current financial year. 2.1.8, districts monitored on national curriculum statement for grades 10 to 12. It's 15 across the MTEF. 219 to 2113, okay. Provinces monitored on extra support classes, it's 9 throughout the MTEF. Schools monitored for implementing compulsory entrepreneurship. For current financial year is 225, and then 270 in the outer years. A report on general education certificate. This one will be a report throughout the MTEF on the piloting of the GEC. 2.1.12, a report produced on schools that pilot and implement vocational stream and occupational stream. It's also a report across the MTEF. Schools monitored for piloting coding and robotics. It's 18 for the current financial year. We try and take a 2.2.1 to 2.2.4. Schools monitored on reading norms. It's 18 across the MTEF. Schools monitored on implementation of incremental introduction to African languages, 18 across the MTEF. Underperforming schools monitored on the implementation of early grade reading assessment, the IGRA, it's 36 across the MTEF. Schools monitored on multi-grade classes, implementing the toolkit, it's 36 across the MTEF. 2.2.5, a report on the implementation of the National Reading Plan. That one is a report also across the MTEF. 2.2.6, a report on the number of schools monitored on the availability of readers. That is also a report across the MTEF. And 231 to 235, schools monitored on utilization of ITC resources. It's 27 per province across the MTEF. And the three indicators I'll take at the same time for the workbooks, home languages, mathematics, as well as the grade R. It's 100% target across the MTEF for the three indicators. 2 and 3.5, it's a report on the learners provided with maths and EFAL textbooks. It's a report on the learners provided with textbooks, maths and EFAL in grades 3, 6, 9, and 12. I think the last three in the program, under program 2, which are also reports, learners in public special schools, percentage of public special schools serving as resource centers. And the last one is a report on the establishment of focus schools per provincial education department. So these are also reports. As we move to 2.4.2, 2.4.3, and 2.4.4, which are also reports. One is on learner. Yeah, I've covered the learners in public special schools, learners, public special schools serving as resource centers, and also the ones that are on the establishment of focus schools per province. I've covered that. And moving to program 3, which starts with the SGBs, school governing bodies that meet minimum criteria in terms of effectiveness. Current financial year is 90%, outer years 50 and 70%. And why 50 in 2024? Because it's the election year. So the SGBs have to be provided with training and then they can start working. 3.1.2, schools producing minimum set of management documents. It's 100% across the MTEF. Funza Lushaka bursaries awarded to students enrolled for initial teacher education. Current financial year is 12,000 and it increases 12,002 in the outer year of both years. 3.1.4, this is a quarterly report tracking Funza Lushaka graduates placed within 6 months upon confirmation that the bursa has been completed. There's 4 reports across the MTEF, 4 reports per year. Reports on the qualified teachers aged 30 and below entering the public service. As teachers, it's a report that is produced annually. The next 2 reports, one is on the functionality of provincial teacher development institutes and district teacher development centers. It's a report, and also implementation of the teacher development programs. So this report will capture the teacher development by the provincial education departments with special focus on language, maths, physical science, and accounting. 3.2.3 to 3.3.2, provincial education departments that had their provisioning processes assessed for compliance. It's 9, it's the total number of the PEDs. Report on the grade R practitioners with NQF level 6 and above qualification. We produce an annual report on this one. PEDs monitored on the implementation of quality management system for school-based educators. It's all the PEDs, which is 9. Also on this one, PEDs are monitored on the implementation of education management service, performance management and development system, which is EMS, PMDS. It's all the PEDs. So therefore the target is 9. So that brings us to the end of program 3. Then as we move to program 4, we start with the infrastructure indicators. They are highlighted in yellow because of the changes. All the indicators which had major changes in targets are highlighted in yellow. So infrastructure, these targets were already covered in the previous slides. So I will not go through them again. Number of general education and training GET test items, it's 500 across the MTEF, MTEF. Number of national senior certificate reports, they are 4, and they are published in the departmental website after the release of the results. Number of question papers set for June and November examinations, it's 320 across the MTEF. Percentage of public schools using the South African School Administration and Management System, SASEMS, for reporting. The target is 98% across the MTEF. 425, it talks to the annual national report on the provinces, or monitoring of the provinces for implementation of the LURIDs being Learner Unit Record Information and Tracking System priorities. So a national report is produced annually for the MTEF. 4.2.6 reports on the learning outcomes linked to a systemic study featuring the National Assessment Framework. An annual report is produced also, as well as a report for early learning national assessment to determine school readiness. As I move towards end of program 4, the 5 indicators. 1, measuring a number of officials from districts that achieved below the national benchmark in the National Senior Certificate, participating in a mentoring program. The target is 60 across the medium-term framework, MTEF. Percentage of school principals rating the support services of districts as being satisfactory. This is biennial, which is measured every 2 years. So there's no target for 2023-24. We have a target for 2024-25. Percentage of district directors that have undergone competency assessment prior to their appointment, it's 100% across the MTEF. Number of underperforming secondary schools, 4.3.4, monitored at least twice a year by sector officials. It's 1,000 underperforming schools across the MTEF. Number of district director forums held, it's 3 per financial year, and then that's across the MTEF. The last slide on the indicators and targets. Program 5, first indicator 5.1.1, a report on the provision of nutritious meals and compliance with feeding requirements. A report is produced for the MTEF. 5.1.2, number of PEDs with approved annual business plans for HIV and AIDS life skills education program. It's number of PEDs, which is the 9 approved business plans across the MTEF. 5.1.3, that's why it's highlighted in yellow. It was covered in the previous slide. Number of districts monitored on the implementation of the National School Safety Framework. Target is 25 across the MTEF. 5.1.4, number of learners, educators, parents, SGPs, and other education stakeholders reached through social cohesion programs. It's 4,000 for the current financial year, 4,005, 2024-25, and 5,000, 2025-26. Number of participants, this was also covered in the previous slide. Stakeholders reached with dialogues, engagements, and training workshops to end school-related gender-based violence. Target current financial year is 4,000. 2024-25, it's 5,000. 2025-26, it's 6,000. 5.1.6, number of professionals trained in SASK programs. Current financial year, across the MTEF, the target is 900. Thank you, Chair. And apologies for the glitches.
Yes, good morning, Chairperson and members of the committee. Can we go to the previous slide? Let me try and show my camera. I always struggle with it. Let me try. Can you see me? Can you see me, Chair? Can anybody see my face?
No, it's only the presentation that is on the screen.
Okay, I always struggle on Zoom, but on the other platform, it's easy. I can see my face on here, but let me go on. I'm not sure. Can we go back one back? Can we go to the beginning of the finance slides? I think slide 65, if you can. Yes, yeah, I was just getting my bearings. Yes, then we can move on. Next slide. Yes, thank you, Chair. Chair, we're showing here the budget for the 3-year MTEF period, starting with the 23-24 period. And then we've also tried, Chair, to show the previous financial year, 2022-23, so that we can be aware of the variances. But I will concentrate more on the 23-24 financial year. At the bottom there, Chair, we're just showing the totals. We're showing that the budget for 23-24 is 31.7 billion, which is an increase of 7% from the previous financial year, which was 29.6 billion. And over the MTEF period for 24-25, there's an increase of 4% and 5% for 25-26. This slide shows the total budget per program, and the next slide shows the total budget per economic classification. Major changes, maybe if one can highlight before you move. I wanted to just show in the previous slide that there's a decrease of 5% in program 1 administration, a decrease from 564 million to 538 million. We can then move. Sorry about that. Next slide, slide 67. You've gone a few back. Yeah, okay, thank you. This slide shows the same budget. If you look at the bottom line totals, shows the same budget, except that this one is per economic classification. The major changes there is that the payments of capital assets has reduced by 19% from 2 billion to 1.7 billion. And interest on rent and land as well is just a minuscule figure, 36 million, but there's a reduction of 7%. And then compensation of employees has reduced by 1%. So I'm just highlighting the reductions. Chair, next slide. Yeah, on this slide, we're going more into detail, Chair, and this is where I'll concentrate much on the 23-24 budget. The indicative allocation, which is the top figure there, is 30.3 billion, and it consists of a departmental baseline of 6.2 billion, a figure just below that, as well as conditional grants to provinces of 24.1 billion. The two together make up the 30 billion. But then below the line of conditional grants, we're showing all the conditional grants. We've listed them there. We must just keep in mind the 30 billion at the top, because in the next slides, it builds up to the 31.7 billion that I showed. Next slide. Next slide, please. Yeah, and then we then have baseline increases of 222 million. So we add it to the 30 billion. And those increases are on compensation of employees, 16 million, as well as buildings and other fixed structures, 1.7 million, as well as goods and services of 204 million. So the three together make up the 222. So it's the 30 billion on the first slide plus the 222. And if we go on to the next slide, further figures get added. Next slide. Yes, we then have a baseline deductions, meaning baseline reductions, sorry, meaning where Treasury reduced our baseline figures. On interest and rent on land, there was a reduction of 4.5 million. And on machinery and equipment, there was a reduction of 1.2 million. The two figures together make up with a 5.735. So these are now the reductions. Next slide. Yeah, the next slide shows the increases in conditional grants. And those increases are on education infrastructure grant, 778 million, as well as on NSNP, National School Nutrition Program grant, 400 million. And all these figures are 38 billion, the 222 minus the 5 million that I showed on the previous slide, plus this figure, make up that budget share which you showed on the first slide, that budget of 31.782 billion. Next slide. We then, Chair, continue here to show allocations that affect what we call earmarked funds like Matric Second Chance, Uhambo ECD, and others. But the big one in that is the workbooks budget, which has not increased. It was 1.2 billion in the previous year. It's still 1.2 billion. That's just a small increase, which is even less than 1%, as well as NSFAS at the bottom of that slide, Funza Lushaka. It was 1.3 billion, 328 last year. This year it's 1.334. Next slide. Next slide, please. Yeah, we're still showing further increases, but the total, go one back. I'm almost there, one back, sorry. One slide back, please. Thank you. Yeah, the total allocations, Chair, just stay on that one slide just before the end, please. You went two back instead of one back. Let's go to the next slide. Yeah, this one, just stay there, don't click anything. Thank you. Yeah, we say in the Chair that there's 3.1 billion that we are showing as allocations. And we're also showing the, yeah, maybe it moves on its own, but we're also showing there, Chair, on that slide that we've just passed, that the school infrastructure backlogs grant, which was 2.4 billion in the current financial year, or in the previous financial year, has now reduced to just over 2 billion, 2.078 billion. Thank you, Chair. I'll hand over back to the acting DG, Dr. Whittle. Thank you.
Thank you very much, CFO. So I'm handing back to you, Chairperson.
Yes, thank you very much. I think what we should do is give Gauteng, Gauteng will deal with the questions as we pose them. And remember, there's the presentation from the department, and like I said earlier, that the minister is not here and the deputy is not here. So we'll ask questions that I think will need the administration to answer. In the light of that, I'm watching the system, and then if members want to ask questions, they can raise their hands. And I think these questions, some of them will go to Gauteng, because they made their presentation. It's just that we did not entertain their questions. We didn't ask them questions. And that we said we'll send questions to them in writing. We did not, because members did not send the questions. They wanted them to appear before the select committee so that they are treated like all other provincial education departments that came to present to the House. Honorable members, with those words, the meeting is open for questions. I see the hand of Honorable Christians, followed by Honorable Ndongeni. And then there's a hand from Honorable Baha. Yeah, you may continue with the questions, Honorable Member, in that order: Christians, Ndongeni, and then Baha.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank
Chairperson, I just wanted to clarify, did you say we can ask Gauteng province questions?
Yeah, we can. No, the questions will go to the national. There'll be others that goes to Gauteng because they are in the meeting. So,
thank you very much, Chairperson. I have a few questions for both then. The first question is regarding the dropout rates in Gauteng. According to a general household survey, which was done in 2021, and it was also released by Stats SA, 3 out of 10 pupils aged 18 years, and 4 out of 9 of 19-year-olds had dropped out of school. And here they specifically mentioned that these dropouts were during the 6th administration. And I just want to know, what was Gauteng Department's mandate? How did they address this problem? And also, could they clarify if they were specifically referring to the 6th administration, or what was the time period of those dropouts? The 18-year-olds, 29.3%, and the 19-year-olds, 46.3%. And also, how was the Department of Education assisting the Gauteng Department in this regard? And an additional question on the dropouts, because it has been in the spotlight in the last few years. How is the Department of Education addressing provincial education departments who are having the same issue with the dropout rates? And then with regard to the mobile classrooms, now, what are the costs associated with implementing mobile classrooms to address additional space, again, specifically in Gauteng schools? And also, could the department and Gauteng province inform us about the time frame for replacing these mobile classrooms, and what the time frame will be from converting these mobile classroom spaces to permanent structures? Is there a plan in place for that to adequately accommodate students then in permanent structures? Then with regard to the CD, the CD program, which aims to improve or to provide new schools and to improve infrastructure in existing schools, can the department just please update us there on the building of the 9 new schools that was supposed to be done, how far that is, how many of them are completed or in the final stages, and also the supplying of water to the 1 school in the 2023-2024 academic year. Has that been done? How close are they to completion? And just on the overall infrastructure, the projects, and how will they achieve that in a reasonable time frame? Then with regard to the school readiness monitoring, that was conducted in January 2023 of this year. What were the findings when that monitoring was done? Can the department tell us on what they found there when that school readiness monitoring was done? Were there any persistent issues? How is it affecting education delivery in the country? And more importantly, how is the department planning to address those issues that were found? And then a very important question is regarding the SAFE program, which addresses the eradication of the basic pit toilets at schools. Now, the department has mentioned that there are still 1,007 sanitation projects to be completed by the end of the 2023-2024 financial year. Now, how is the department monitoring and evaluating the implementation of these projects? Because it is an ongoing problem. In the term I've been in Parliament in the 6th administration, it seems that these totals have not really come down. So how is the department planning to monitor and to ensure that they meet the required timelines as well as the required standards by the end of the 2023-2024 financial year? Then with regard to the ICT and internet connectivity program, could the department just please provide us more clarity on that? Who is responsible for the monitoring of this? Why is it still a challenge? And if it is still a challenge, what is the department doing to see to it that the slow rollout of the ICT and internet connectivity at schools will also be done in the appropriate time span? Then something that has also been in the media for some time is and there's also a lack of clarity with regard to policy, is the online schools. Now, if I'm not mistaken, that was on page 16. I could be wrong, but what steps is the department taking to bridge this gap? Because it seems the department does have a lack of policy clarity with regard to online schools. And also, can the department provide us, with further relevant information that they've gained, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, because a lot of education took place online. So is this something that the DBE is engaging with further in the future? Is it something that more in-depth policy needs to be undertaken? Or is it something that the department is not going to be engaging in the future? And then just the last question, Chairperson, is regarding the monitoring of all 9 provinces, 30 districts and 130 schools. Could the department provide us an update with regard to the progress made in implementing this monitoring process? In other words, how many of the provinces, districts and schools have been monitored thus far? I'm speaking specifically on the slide of page 99. So how many provinces, districts and schools have been monitored thus far, and what are the outcomes and findings of this monitoring? And also in terms of the National School Nutrition Program, in terms of using the quarterly reports that were mentioned, what has the department found are the key challenges with regard to the National School Nutrition Program, that is the feeding scheme? However, these reports that have been received from PEDs, how have they been used to improve the school feeding scheme? And additionally, of course, what are the challenges that these reports have shown, and how will the department address these challenges? Sorry, Chairperson, I do have another question. It's with regard to the Bella Bill. This will be my last question.
Yeah, you may continue your question.
Thank you, Chairperson. I also would like the department to give us a few details. Now, the Bella Bill has been out for discussion. Could the department provide us details on the involvement of the DBE during the provincial public hearings? How does the DBE participate in these hearings and contribute to the discussions and deliberations? And also, very importantly, excuse me,
Please.
What insights has the DBE gained while being involved in these public hearings across the country with regard to the billable? There has been a few negative connotations around the billable. How is the department considering that negative connotations around the bill and dealing with it and ensuring that the bill is implemented correctly and to the success of schools? Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Communities and the outcomes thereof. So that's something that we're going to do in this financial year, Chairperson, where we'll be doing a perception study on the effectiveness of community programs in improving community policing relations. So we'll be looking at and public participation.
Anybody hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Oh, thank you, Chair. My question is on Gauteng. On page 47 of the APP notes, continuing the working relations with sports and recreation, arts and culture, health, and the South African Police Service to teach and promote social cohesion, health and school safety. Can the GP please elaborate on the relationship in terms of how it is maintained and sustained? What are the benefits achieved from all being part of this relationship? Are all involvement parties able to report their involvement as part of their formal duties? Are all involved parties able to contribute towards the budget needs of program or initiatives? The second one, on page 62, on their APP, the department envisages establishment of site health and psychosocial facilities at schools to provide health education and social services to all children, including learners with mental health or substance abuse issues. Here's the question. That the word envisage is used. Please clarify the plan and the budget needs to achieve the above. Is there a relationship with other government departments and organizations who are interested and capable of making this a reality in this financial year? The last one, on page 88 of APP, allocate 40.4 million for the implementation of school sports tournament in soccer, rugby, cricket, and netball, and athletics in the province, of which 13.7 million is for youth and culture, 16.6 million for sports, 7.4 million for values in education, and 2.5 million for school health. Can they please clarify the details of the proposed initiative and programs for which the amount, which above amounts are earmarked? Thank you, Chairperson.
Oh, sorry, thanks, Mr. It will also be of interest to us to know what happened to the schools that were affected by the July uprisings in Gauteng, the Eastern and the Eastern. And then the other question will be related to the second chance matric. What is the progress? Are you making, are children playing in large numbers, and what is their performance? When giving a second chance, do people improve? And then the other is issues related to underperforming schools. What is the program and what kind of support are you giving to those? And need to separate between underperforming and non-performing schools. Because when the school is non-performing, it means there's not even a single pass in that school. You find the whole metric failing. It has happened. I've seen that in many schools in Limpopo, in some schools in Limpopo. Are there such schools in Gauteng? And if so, what kind of program do you have in place to help them improve? Who was next on the, was it Honorable Baha?
Yes,
Yeah,
Chair.
Honorable Baha.
Thank you, Chair. Just one question on my side from Gauteng, and it has to do with the eradication of unsafe pit latrines in school, in our schools. I just want to get a sense of whether Gauteng does have that problem, and if so, how far are they from eradicating completely unsafe pit latrines? Chair, on the actual presentation, I have 3 questions. One, as per cross-cutting focus areas of the revised MTSF, 3% of all the individuals employed in GDE will be people with disabilities. Now, my question is, one, can you kindly elaborate on the strategy used by GDE to achieve the mentioned 3%? Because most provinces have stated that it is a challenge to attract individuals with disabilities into the sector. The second one, Chair, are there indications that the no-fee school policy, school nutrition, and scholar transport programs might not be continued in the future? How are these programs envisaged to become financially viable in the long term? The last one, Chairperson, is on the 6,000 Youth Brigade project. Can you elaborate on the successes and challenges of this kind of a project? Thank you, Chairperson.
You're welcome, Honorable Baha. Is there another hand?
My apologies, Chair. I just can't raise my hand. My hand function is not operational. May I kindly come in,
Okay, no,
Chair?
you're welcome, Honorable Mzube. You may ask your questions.
No, thanks, Chair. Just, I think you've covered me in terms of the intervention being done on and then the update on a second time matriculants, Chair. But as a just wanting to get a sense, Chair, I just saw in the presentation the learner-teacher ratio, Chair. In a sense, Chair, we know that most of the schools in the townships, you find it that in classroom, they would have more than 50 learners in the classroom having one teacher, Chairperson. So I just wanted to check maybe how do we deal with that so that in future time we are able to have a very balanced learner-teacher ratio, Chairperson. I think that is what I wanted to get clarity on. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mzube. Is there another hand on the platform? All right. Yeah, I'll give over to Mbonambi and the team and the Gauteng. You may take questions that you think belongs to you.
No, thank you very much, Chairperson. I think as the DBE we can start and then we'll hand over to Mr. Cheney from Gauteng. I've noticed, Chairperson, that our DG has joined. DG, maybe let me invite you to make some comments before we hand over to the team to respond. DG.
Oh, welcome, DG. I didn't see your name on the platform now.
No, good morning, Honorable Chair, Honorable members.
Good morning.
Thank you, Dr. Whittle. I'm sorry that I did not start with the meeting. I just joined of interest for follow-up meetings, Chair. Dr. Whittle is the acting head of the department, is the day jury, although I might be the de facto, but he is the day jury. So even if I speak under his leadership, so he continues to lead. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thanks very much, DG. Thanks, Chair. Ms. Diali, can you deal with the infrastructure questions? And then I will ask Ms. Gaia to deal with the ICT set of questions. And then I will cover the NSNP and then invite Mr. Kuno or Advocate Missa to respond to the Bella question. So, Ms. Diali.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Dr. Whittle, and thank you, honorable members. Okay. So there are two questions that I'm going to attempt to respond to. There's one on a CD. It talks about we have committed to build 9 schools, and the question is, how close is DBE to completing the schools? So in terms of the 9 schools, 2 of the schools are currently under construction. And unfortunately, what happened when we got the allocation in the for the current financial year, we had in fact hoped to complete all the inappropriate schools. So the other 7, we are still in the process to get the schools with the needs, and those will be assessed. And then, so I can say we have not started with the other 7. So that is the answer on that first one. Then there's another question on SAFE, that we have committed to 1,007 sanitation projects. And the question is, what is the progress on those, and how are we monitoring those? So I'm going to request that I come back with in writing in terms of progress that we have made on all the SAFE projects. But in terms of monitoring, I can indicate that we are doing constant monitoring for all our projects. So the monitoring happens right from the office of the DG. We also have a program support unit that we have employed that are helping us with the monitoring. And we also do visit some of the schools as the infrastructure officials. Thank you, Dr. Whittle. I'll come back in writing on the other one. Thank you very much.
Okay,
You're
thanks very
welcome.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ms. Diali. Ms. Kaya?
Thank you very much, and good morning to all the honorable members in the House. On the ICT questions and the monitoring thereof, who does that? So this is a collective responsibility in terms of monitoring. The first place where we check and we take reports and we track what is happening in provinces is in our HEDCOM subcommittee. It is a subcommittee that deals specifically with ICT. It's called an E-Education Subcommittee of HEDCOM. All 9 provinces are represented there. And the colleagues in the provinces who deal with ICT are actually the ones who come to these meetings where we take our reports. But over and above that, the DBE as a national department also goes out to the provinces, and we do the monitoring there to determine the extent to which we are making inroads on issues of ICT, and in particular, the progress on connectivity. Now, the challenge is maybe just to say that there are about 18,000 schools that have been covered in terms of connectivity. But the problems around connectivity are not solely located within the DBE. Many of the problems around why schools have not got connectivity is because the infrastructure to enable that we have this connectivity is not there. In very deep rural areas, it's not possible because they have not done, they don't have infrastructure to be able to have that kind of connectivity. There's no connection, there's no, we need MTN and the other providers who are Vodacom and Telkom and all of them to actually become involved. And the Department of Communications are busy with looking at how we can expedite that infrastructure to allow for us to expedite issues of connectivity. We also have, in relation to that, because it's not only about the connectivity in the data, but it's also about the devices that we need to provide. And so we have recently got a donation from Stats SA. The tablets that they used in the last census, they have donated to education. And we have currently given that to all the provinces, and they are beginning to send that. The information on those tablets have to be cleaned up, and they are currently doing that. And then they will send that out to the schools so that the devices can then be used within the schools. But again, they would have to check, whether they can reach all the schools, because the donation doesn't cover all of it. But the important thing is about connectivity. More urbanized areas and where schools are located in high urban areas, they are more advantaged than the rural areas. And it's not the DBE that's preventing that. It is the broad infrastructure problems within the country that need to be sorted out before we can actually give the connectivity. On issues of the online schooling, we have a framework policy that we have developed on online schools and how they should operate, and how this area of schooling should be regulated. That is a process that we have taken through our legal department to ensure that there are certain things around just putting the checks and balances in place. For instance, you need to have a proper understanding of how the school would operate, in which legal framework. When we wrote the South African Schools Act, we did not have online schools. I mean, there is a category that could cover the possibility of online schools, but the more we debate it, it needs to be teased out in legislation properly. And this framework policy document that we have developed is something that we've put in place to tide us over, but there are certain areas that we are still teasing out and checking the relevance with our legal department, and also how to improve the wording to ensure that we are able to ensure that they teach the correct curriculum, that the teachers that are teaching them are suitably qualified and there are proper checks and balances on that, and that the work that the learners have to cover are in line with what you would put in place with checks and balances if you were in a face-to-face arrangement in a classroom. And so we are finalizing that process, which essentially closes the gaps that the honorable member had spoken to. And once we have finalized on that, from a legal point of view, we would be able to take it back to our mandatory structure for final approval and for publication. So that's the answer in relation to those two questions. Thank you very much.
Apologies, Ms. Gaya. There's one that I've missed, which is the findings of the school readiness monitoring and how we're addressing those findings. If you could maybe talk to that one.
So in terms of the school readiness findings, these reports are, once we've pulled all the information together, is given to the province and to the districts. But also there's a team of people that are working within the DBE who go out and they then check and follow through on the exact nature of what those reports have indicated, and to work with the provinces to find out the extent to which they've addressed the issues. And the provinces formally write a report back to us to give us an indication of how they have covered whatever the problems are that have been highlighted, and what the mitigation is, and how, whether the problem is resolved or whether it is still an ongoing matter, but what the process of the procedure would be to finalize that problem that has been identified in these reports. It's an ongoing process, and we have groups of dedicated officials that have been appointed specifically to deal with this, and we get the reports that come in regularly in terms of the outcomes that have been reported. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ms. Gaya. Mr. Kuno, if you can deal with the Bella one.
Thanks, Dr. Whittle. Advocate Misa will deal with that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and good morning to the Chairperson, Honourable members, the DG on the line, as well as officials from the DBE and the Provincial Education Department. Indeed, the department has been attending the public hearings on the Bella Bill in the provinces in order to ascertain the public responses on the bill. The comments that are being raised at the public hearings are being noted. The legislative process is such that when the public hearings are finalized, the DBE will be given an opportunity to respond to the comments that have been raised during the public hearings. And this is when the responses, whether the comments are in support of the bill or not, will be made by the Department of Basic Education in order for Parliament then to decide on what further amendments should be made to the current version of the bill. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thanks very much, Advocate. Chair, so I will deal with the last one, which is the question on NSNP. So what are the challenges that we're picking up through the monitoring? Quite a wide range of challenges, ranging from inadequate training of volunteer food handlers, issues of health and hygiene, food safety, the quality of the food stuff delivered to a school, short deliveries by some service providers, issues related to financial management of the money deposited in school accounts. And we provide ongoing training to the provinces and to the districts. We have quite a large team of monitors around the country that's constantly monitoring. And they then also do the remediation of some of these challenges that we pick up through the monitoring process. Chairperson, that then brings me to the end of the DBE response. I'll then hand over to Mr. Cheney from Gauteng.
Thank you, Dr. Whittle. Good morning, Honourable Chairperson and Honourable members. I will deal with the questions. If I start with the first question on the dropout rate, Honourable Member Christian, my understanding of the report from Stats South Africa is they were reflecting on the national dropout and not specifically Gauteng. I think we did look into those particular aspects. I think the important thing about the report from Stats South Africa from the General Household Survey was in respect of the compulsory education band from basically under 15 and under. You will find that a large number of learners did not feature as a problem. So we know that we have overall, and I'll speak for Gauteng, and I'm sure it would apply to most provinces, the dropout rate in the GT band from grade 1 to grade 9 has stabilized. The dropout rates are not substantive as much as we thought about, but also that there are some gaps in our information systems because there are learners who are migrating to other forms of education that is not fully catered for in terms of small centers, which are basically creating the impression of home education. They're not regulated by the department, and parents don't properly apply for their dropout. So overall, I think the figures that you quoted deal with learners that are 18 and 19-year-olds. They are already deemed to be overage in most cases. It is not the intention of the SIX administration to allow anyone to leave schooling without a good qualification that opens opportunities for post-schooling. The measures that we've put into place is to essentially drive a school base. So in terms of the national attendance policy, the management of learners not reporting to school is a matter that must be initiated at school level by the principal to engage the parents as to why learners have not returned. And I think to a large extent, we have implemented that policy during COVID, where we reissued a circular reinforcing that what schools need to do is to account for all learners that had registered in January and to track them. The aspect that we're very cautious about is that when learners leave the Gauteng or any other provincial system, it does not necessarily mean dropout. We know that interprovincial migration is an ongoing factor. Learners come into Gauteng, they leave Gauteng. We know that interprovincial movement is quite high, and I think hopefully we would be able to do a lot of work with the Lourdes data to do that. I am aware that officials at DBE have done some work in this regard, and it does show that there is a lot of movement between provinces. So I think in terms of the mandate, we require the schools to go and follow up with learners where they are not successful in getting learners to return or don't have a valid reason for non-attendance, which is legal. They need to escalate it to the district officers, and then obviously we would engage in alternative mechanisms to ensure the enforcement of compulsory. But between over the 15-year-olds, it's very difficult to enforce because ultimately they're out of the compulsory schooling band, and that then becomes an issue of parental choice together with the learners. I think Stats South Africa continuously does report on the reasons for these dropouts, which also includes claims that they can no longer afford sending the child to school. And I think those aspects with free education and free schooling, I think it's something that we need to investigate in more detail. The issue of the mobile classrooms, I think the current unit cost, and I'm going to just give you the figure with some disclaimer that it may not be fully accurate. It is approximately 400,000 rands to set up into 20 years if they're well maintained in a school. We as Gauteng have got a limited budget. We are mainly funded from the National Infrastructure Grant, which comes from the Department of Basic Education. And so our ability to be more responsive is impacted by budget limitations in the light that we are growing by 1.5% to 2% per year. There's a net increase of 60,000 learners annually. And so we need to be able to respond to that. The important aspect here is that the settlement patterns for projection work is not clear. It is only when learners come in December, January, as a result of migration, that we really know where to respond. And in those instances, we then have to put in place mobile. So it's not our intention to deploy mobiles, but it is a solution to meeting demand. So we've not had any children out of school, at least in Gauteng, even though the demand is high. I think the replacement is a planned process. For the next 3 years, we have received also a national allocation of 1.5 billion over the next 3 years. This is in addition to the grant, and that is to build 18 schools. With the grant, we are projecting to build 17 schools over the next 3 years. In total, 35 schools that we have. And I think to a large extent, my understanding of the current plans that we have in place is that we will move to a point where we are able to replace approximately 22 schools. This will cover both asbestos, mobile, schools with structural damage, and one Elsen school. And then we will be building 13 new schools, and that is fully funded in terms of the MTSF budget or the MTF budget. And so we are moving it. So the majority of schools that we are building are replacement schools, and hopefully we'll get there. I think in total we have 11 mobile schools that are planned for replacement in this MTF. The aspect about social cohesion and the relationships, I'll break it out in different parts. In terms of school safety and related aspects, we have a formal agreement with the South African Police Service, the community policing structures in Gauteng, the Department of Community Safety and Education. That is an ongoing steering committee that we have. Each party funds its own activities. And I think to a large extent, we've been working on that. The one big initiative that we have jointly that education is funding, but the police service, the Community Policing Forum, and the Department of Safety and Security undertake on our behalf is the recruitment of community members to serve as patrollers and support safety measures in schools. And currently we're sitting at 5,500 to 6,000 that are deployed in high risk and no-fee schools as a way of bolstering safety and security. As an ongoing aspect, the police services also have the adopt-a-cop process, but they're also starting to deal with new patrols to schools, especially on weekends, as a response to us introducing ICT in schools. And I think to a large extent, that is stabilizing and supporting us. In addition to that, the crime intelligence unit and the Gauteng Police Commissioner is driving a intelligence gathering process to look at where the high-risk schools are in terms of potential violence as well as theft. The police in themselves, just as an example, how we account, so it's through the steering committee that is coordinated by the Department of Community Safety, but even the portfolio committee in the Gauteng legislature has had oversight over these processes through their focus intervention studies. They have invited all of these parties to present their own outputs in respect of the overall strategy. In terms of the psychosocial aspect, we have a working relationship with the Department of Social Development, but we also have a relationship with NGOs working in that sector, including the Teddy Bear Clinic. So we also have a dedicated unit of psychosocial support practitioners. Whenever we have a substantive incident in schools, whether it's a death of a learner or allegations of rape or any forms of abuse, this team is deployed to those schools to go and interact with the learners, debrief, and provide the necessary support. We have got formal agreements with the Teddy Bear Clinic and other NGOs, and they will go in support of the psychosocial support on an ongoing basis. In some instances, we are reliant on the funds that are fundraised by the NGOs, and we are looking at mechanisms of supplementing that income. In some instances, we do pay for services where there is ongoing support that is required for that support. In respect of the questions related to the school sports and culture aspects, the major drive from the 4th, 5th, and 6th administration is to get all township schools to introduce or reintroduce and or sustain school sport amongst learners. And this would be typically what we used to call your inter-house kind of sporting activities to get learners to participate in sporting activities in the schools. What we are doing in terms of sports tournaments is now incentivizing inter-school tournaments to try and get this sport to become much more competitive and to try and drive some kind of improvement in standards in all aspects of sport. What I need to indicate is that when it comes to interprovincial sport at a competitive level, the Department of Sports in Gauteng, Sports, Arts, Culture and Recreation is responsible for funding the interprovincial and competitive participation at a provincial level. In terms of the youth development, it's mainly around aspects of getting learners to participate in other cultural activities, chess tournaments, as well as public speaking and also leadership programs. And then in terms of the values in education and culture, it's promoting the national symbols, and as well as dealing with issues of public participation across the board and with the legislature is the promotion of youth parliament and to ensure that there is participation. I think the aspect of school health in that budget is a more of a support function. It is to deal with the school health services that are performed by the Department of Health in the province. They have school nurses, and what we essentially help them with is to coordinate so that we can do proper targeting because there's insufficient nurses, and then obviously to do health promotion on an ongoing basis in schools. Chair, on the aspect of the July uprisings, we had been able to stabilize schools. In the cases where there was some damage, Gauteng wasn't fully or totally affected by damage. A large number of schools were intact with small damages in the vicinity of the school. But there are problems that are ongoing that are not related to the July uprising, and that is the civil strife from community organizations who then basically disrupt education on an ongoing basis that then impacts on schooling. And I think in the Ekurhuleni region, we seem to find that this is very high, and so learners lose a lot of days in that regard. But wherever there is disruptions, we have put into place catch-up plans and so on. Chair, on the second chance performance, we know that what we are picking up from the June-July exam that are written, we know that the learners writing the old NSC subjects for certification is declining in terms of enrollment. So we know that more and more of them are completing their certification. That it is difficult to know the full impact because most second chance learners are trying to combine results from more than one year. And so the resulting takes place once that. But in terms of the performance in individual subjects and overall that we were aware of, we know that a large percentage of the learners are completing this particular second chance opportunity that's given. We know that there are more learners completing on the old NSC syllabus as compared to the learners in the last few years. And it's something that we are focusing on. The measures that we put into place is support centers across the province, but we're also dealing with online support, as well as a television distribution through we've built a studio at the Sabono Discovery Center, and from the studio, we're broadcasting via streaming services. Chair, I think that covers most of the questions. Maybe on the issue of the underperforming schools. In that regard, underperforming schools, I need to indicate that there are 4 schools that are performing at around 40% and below. All 4 of them are independent schools. We've got 1 public school performing below 50%. It's a new school that just declined from last year. And we have put into place measures to intervene with both the independent and the public schools that are underperforming. In total, we had 35 schools performing under 60%. I think in agreement with the National Department of Basic Education, we've agreed to up the criteria to 70%. We're currently rerunning the data to identify there will be additional schools that will be declared as underperforming. We only have 5 public schools that are chronically underperforming. That means for 3 years or more, they were below 60%. And in those schools, we've now looked at intervening with the view of looking at management and personnel changes, because the real problems in the schools are related to governance and management. The question on the pit latrines, we have 2 schools that still have the pit latrine facility, even though we have built waterborne sewage toilets in those schools. But the problem that we have is getting the municipal authorities to extend the bulk services to the schools. The schools are refusing us to demolish those pit latrines. We have now provided them with alternate solutions with a view to saying they should stop the pit latrines and so on. But this problem with the school refusing to demolish has been going on for 5 years. And I think we now taken a decision that we will override their decision and provide them with mobile toilets until we can get the waterborne system up and running. The question on the learner-teacher ratio, I think there is, maybe just to indicate that the post-provisioning model, which allocates teachers to schools, is predominantly an equality distribution model. So if there are 2 schools, a township school and a suburban school, with exactly the same subject set and the same number of learners, they will get exactly the same number of teachers. So we know at an equality level that it's there. The complication that is not fully addressed to the post-provisioning model is that the majority of township schools in Gauteng are not monolingual, they're multilingual, especially in African languages. And as a result of that, these splits that we find in order to accommodate in timetabling just makes it impossible to have a fair distribution within the school. And so we find that some classes are overcrowded because of the language choice, and then other classes have lower enrollments within the same school. There are a number of schools where the total population of the school is high in every grade, and that is mainly as a result of shortages of physical space, because even if we allocate, and it has happened that where we allocate the teachers, some teachers don't have a full timetable because there's a shortage of classrooms in that specific vicinity. And until we can deliver prefabricated classrooms, it continues as a problem. But it is a method that we're engaging on an ongoing basis. We're trying to find the best solutions to reducing that burden in schools. I think the last point around the LE ratio is that the education budget for the last 4 years has had cuts. So we do not have a large allocation, and we don't have an allocation for the expansion of the the workforce of teachers. And therefore, what we are going to see if the budget doesn't change over time is an increase in LE ratios or learner-teacher ratios because of limited funding. We can't employ additional teachers if we don't get the additional budget across. So 90% of the increases that provinces get in education is just to maintain current levels, and they're basically inflation linked. So there is no growth factor in the increase in the budget. Chairperson, can I hand over back to you? Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah, thanks. Are there further additions from the department, national and Gauteng? If there are no additions, let me take this opportunity to thank everybody in the meeting, members, the provincial department, Gauteng, and the National Department of Basic Education for honoring our invite. Thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
We're not going to have another meeting after this one because we take in the buses at 12:30. Nolthando?
Sorry, Chair, we've got one set of minutes. It's
Yeah,
a very
the
short set of
members will
minutes.
remain in the meeting, only the department can go. Yeah, sorry, time is against us. Will you flag the minutes? Nolthando, are you able to hear me?
Yes, Chair. Can you see the minutes, Chair?
Chair. Chair. Honorable Njadu. Honorable
Yeah,
Njadu.
now I can see that. Okay, just the minutes. All members, my phone is acting up. Are there any comments on the minutes? If there's none, can we get a mover for adoption of the minutes?
Ndongeni moves the adoption of the minutes, Chair.
Measures to advance the transformation of the police. So the
Chair.
We have had these minutes for quite some days.
Chair. Chairperson. Chairperson. And Saskia. Daddy?
Any mover?
Yes, I moved, Daddy. I moved, Chair.
Ndongeni, is your hand up?
Yes.
As if you miss each other, Chair. It's if
We
you are
don't
missing
know
each
what is
other.
happening with the chairperson's gadget. Chair,
Okay. Honorable Ndongeni is moving, Chair. Can I accept that?
Seconding.
Honorable Nkosi is
Thando.
seconding.
Yes, I'm
It's
seconding.
like I can't be here, yeah. Yeah?
Okay, Chairperson. Honorable Ndongeni is moving for the adoption and Honorable Nkosi is
Nolthando.
seconding.
I think Chair has got a problem with his phone, with the volume of his phone.
Honorable Njatu, can you please take over?
Yes, I'm
I
doing
think
that
it's
now. I'm doing
Yes.
to assist the chair. Honorable Ndongeni is moving for adoption,
Nolthando.
and Honorable Nkosi is seconding.
Yes, Honorable Njatu.
Can we take that, Chairperson?
Close the meeting, Honorable Njatu.
Okay,
Can you please close the meeting, Honorable?
Thank you very much, members.
The next item, Honorable
Yes,
Njatu.
can we, on that note, thank all the members and also to thank the department and for the presentations and then on that note that declare this meeting as adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Njatu. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.